All right, crypto fans, today it's Friday. We are at September 6th. In previous videos, I talked about how it looks as if from the past, September is usually a down month for crypto. So I figured it's probably going to come down, altcoins, Bitcoin, whatever. Who knows, 10, 20, 30% if it does come down at all. And we got off to an incredible start with things going down. This is Total 3. Take a look at it. This is Crypto for the Rest of Us, 6 days a week, tip, tool, or coin analysis. Today, what I'm going to talk about is what I'm doing in the way I look at my portfolio. We're going to look at some numbers. I'm going to give you my thoughts, and maybe you want to apply that sort of reasoning to your own portfolio if you're doing dollar cost averaging, or maybe you're just purchasing some new crypto. I'll show you what I look at, 3 things, and then I'm going to give you 2 ways in which I view some of the assets that I purchase. I always have to say, big dumb animal, don't do what I do. So we're going to talk some numbers. We're going to look at a couple AI because I believe they're at good purchasing prices. But then again, if things keep going down, they could get better. So here's how I look at it for September. Got my nerd glasses on because we're going to look at some numbers. So first off, we're going to look at 3. We're going to look at Render. We're going to look at Aether. We're going to look at Fetch. 3 AIs that I own that I think can do very well. So let's look at a couple things as prices are coming down. First off, let's talk multiples. So if you look at Render now, it's around $5. It's 4.7, and it had been around 13. And the last time it was here was around February, and prior to that, around December. So I always like to think about, what does this really mean in terms of multiples? If you're hoping to receive a 5x or a 10x, what does that mean, and how possible is it with this particular one? Render doesn't go back to the last run up, but if we just look this year, it hit around 14. Okay, so 5 times 3 is 15, so 2 to 3x to the last. But what does that mean in terms of size? Render fully diluted, I look at fully diluted, and it is at 2.5 billion. All right, so if you're looking at a 3x, that means earlier this year, 2 to 3x, if it's at 2.5 billion, you're looking at 7.5 billion. Okay, that number is astronomical. But still, with respect to other crypto and other things going on, particularly because it's in the AI space, does that sound reasonable? Yeah, 7.5 billion, 10 billion for Render. I think it's very reasonable. I've done videos on Render before. You may or may not be familiar with it. It's probably one of the most talked about AIs. Got a bunch of GPUs. Company created it to have their own software solution. You get to use all of those GPUs to render your projects without having to buy all the infrastructure. And then, of course, they're applying it more importantly to the AI space because they have what the AI space wants, the particular enterprise GPUs. All right. So first off, 2 to 3x, yeah, that seems completely possible. Now, if you bought in around 10, even this year, there are people that are in around 10. Last year, October, those individuals are in at around $1.80. Let's say $2. So when it comes to multiples, I mark on my spreadsheet not only, of course, my average buy-in, but what I think is starting middle, early last year average buy-in. Why? Well, because if it were to hit, let's say 15 and they're at 2, well, they have a 7 to 8x. And in my mind, for whatever reason, it's kind of like when people say Bitcoin might hit 100,000, a lot of people might be selling just because there's that number of 100,000. Doesn't really mean anything, but in our brains it does. 10x multiple means something in our brains, in my opinion. So for someone at 2, if it gets to 20, you might have a lot of selling pressure and people jumping out. Whereas if it gets to 20 and you're at 5, you're only at a 4x. So I mark that on my sheet, and that's about the time I start watching volume. This is on balance volume. I think I talked about it before, but basically on a closed day, if today closes higher than yesterday, the volume is added. If today closes lower than yesterday, the volume is subtracted. Trying to get an idea of the buying and selling pressure as something's moving down or chopping sideways. What is this volume? Are more people selling or more people buying, so to speak? Okay, so that's when I'm going to start watching, not when I'm looking at getting a 10x, but when last year's people, October, November, are about to reach a 10x. What is that going to mean for me? Okay, so on each one of my coins, I look at each one of my crypto. All right, so a 10x from 2, from 2, a 10x would be 20. And for me, that might be a 5. I'm going to be watching it because is the volume still pushing forward or is it not? Because you also have people here that when it hits 20, they're only at a 2x. That's still astronomical. Okay, that's the first thing is first and second is looking at the multiples of mine and theirs. So I know when to keep an eye on it. And then looking at market cap, and do I think that is just, if I'm looking at, hey, can this 10x? Do I think it's just an outrageous? Because from here at 2.5 billion times 10 would be 25 billion. I don't think that's outrageous for Render. Therefore, that kind of passes the smell test, if you will. Now, another thing that I'm looking at is, since I do own this, dollar cost averaging. And we've talked about this before. Would it make any sense? I've shown this before, and it's real simplistic. So a lot of times when things start dropping pretty significantly, you say to yourself, oh man, I'm really missing out. Well, let's say you put in $10,000 here, and it was $1 was your average, and you had 10,000 coins. You got 1,000 this month to put in. You're thinking, should I throw it into this particular coin? It's at 50 cents. The difference between $1 and 50, significant, right? You can 2x this, you're at $1. Okay, so you get 2,000 coins. What would that do for you? Well, you do the math. It's 11,000 invested. You end up with 12,000 coins, 92 cents. So you went from $1 to 92 cents. Okay, maybe that's not the best use of that $1,000 worth of capital because you're only dropping it to 92 cents, even though you're getting it at 50. Now, if you were to put in $5,000, well, look, you've dropped it to 75 cents. If you were to put in 10,000, you've dropped it significantly. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. Do the math real quick and say, does it make any sense for me to be purchasing this, a little more of it? Maybe, maybe not. Another way to look at it, and this is just a mind thing, but I say to myself sometimes, if I really believe in this 50 cents and I really believe in the $1, then I'm assuming that 50 cents is going to get to $1. So I say, you know what? I have an investment of this. $10,000, $1 a coin, I have 10,000 coins. I have a separate investment, which I'm going to treat separate, as if it's a different coin. $1,000 at 50 cents. I'm going to sell out at $1, which sounds like it doesn't make sense if I really believe this is going to take off. But on the other hand, it might be a quick way, if I really believe it's going to go right back up to $1 really fast, of turning whatever this new investment is and doubling it in a very short period of time. That's a second way of looking at it. Okay, so that's Render. Let's look at Ethereum. It doesn't have a lot of past, but I'm a big fan of Ethereum. I believe they've got their solutions, gaming and AI. They have GPUs, many of them, many countries, and they start off with an impressive gaming solution. I've said before, I'm not into gaming coins because I don't know much about them, but gaming infrastructure, sure, that makes sense to me. And then AI, of course, huge. And I think, because I did a whole video on this, how at the current price, you're buying it at a cheaper price than the last investors got. So if you can buy at a price lower than the investors, then there's a group of investors that you're riding with. And that is very rare with coins. They're only at 1.8 fully diluted. See, the market cap is 178. I like to look at fully diluted. So if this were to 10x, you're looking at 18 billion. I think that's reasonable. They're very similar to a Render in terms of their offering and how you use it. They're on the popular exchanges, many of them. I'm an Ethereum fan. Okay, so 0.04, it was up around 0.08. You're only getting it at half the price of where it was at its kind of its high. So if it's something new for you, you might want to jump in. If you're dollar cost averaging, you just want a little more because you're rebalancing, fine. But it doesn't look like something I'm looking to buy more of at the moment, because for me, I have proportionally what I want. All right, let's look at another one. This one I think is really good. Fetch. I call it Fetch, but as you know, 3 different came together. Long story, but this is more of a customer-facing AI with some back-end there's a long history and information about the three that came together to create this. But check this out. Recently around 80 cents, around $1. Last time it was around $1 now, was back in February. But even I said, okay, if you look back into last year, you're looking at 75 cents, maybe 50 cents. Okay, so last year's people, when they 10x, you'll be 5xing. So that's something I put in my sheet to keep an eye on, like I talked about. You can see this chopped down and on balance volume slightly down. But check out the recent prices at 3.5. So that's 3.5, a 3.5x just to get back to previous prices. So what I'm doing, this is the third one we're looking at, but I'll tell you what I'm doing now because it is only September 6th, and I believe the market might continue to go down. I'm dollar cost averaging in, but I'm putting buy orders. I'm hoping for a low wick. And who knows, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. So this is back in February, it was at 51 cents. I put a buy order in at 60 cents. Okay, it may never hit, but this month, meaning it might be a down month for this particular one, heck, if I can get it for half of this price, right, then I'm back with the people from last year, at least part of it. So that's what I wanted to point out today was don't just jump in. If we believe September is going to be a down month and you do have some money to either buy new, if you have buy new money, a coin you've never had before, odds are it's at a great price now. If you're looking to dollar cost average, well, just do the math and see if it really makes sense. Now, if it doesn't make sense, it might make sense if you put in something and you say, well, what if this price dropped down significantly, right? So even though it was $1,000, you went from 92 cents to 79. That's a big difference. You dropped it pretty significantly only because you got that $1,000 so cheap. So put in a buy order with a limit price of 25 cents or whatever it may be. In this case, I've got one at 60 cents. It might not hit, but am I buying it right now at $1? My current price isn't much more than that. So, but if I could get a chunk of it at 60 cents, great. So that's what I wanted to point out today. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be putting together an episode today for Saturday. And that's because I'm going to go out on a limb. As you can see, most of mine, I think, are pretty safe plays. I'm looking at industries I think will do well. I'm looking at coins, kind of some of the top coins or lower if they have good tech. But tomorrow, I'm going to go out on a limb. It's not a meme coin, but it's incredibly low market cap. But this company seems to be executing really well. So please do subscribe. I'm really trying to get to 1,000 people. I think that'd be great. I do have a Discord that I've started. And if you find value in this, please hit a like. And every day, or almost every day, I do later in the day, an HBAR and ICP episode for those of you that are interested. Have a great day. Hope we can all make generational wealth together with crypto.